The first thing I learned about love is that it doesn't wait for permission, it crashes into your life like a car you never saw coming. And the second, that running away from it doesn't mean you'll ever outrun its consequences. I should know. Because the night I finally broke free from Daniel Carter, New York's youngest and most ruthless defense lawyer, was the same night I unknowingly tied myself to him forever. It wasn't supposed to be this way. I wasn't supposed to belong to anyone. When my father shook hands with Daniel over champagne in his corner office, I was little more than a pawn in their political game. My family's business teetered on bankruptcy, and Daniel's prestigious law firm needed a spotless alliance to strengthen his grip in the upcoming elections. A marriage contract was drawn up in black and white, neat signatures binding me to a man whose heart seemed carved out of ice. Daniel was everything I wasn't. Controlled, calculated, power stitched into every line of his custom suits. His words cut with precision, the kind that could dismantle an opponent in court or dismantle me with the same terrifying ease. To him, I was an obligation dressed up as strategy. And yet, behind his unreadable gaze, there were fleeting moments I couldn't unsee. His hand lingering a second too long on mine during a staged photo, his jaw tightening when another man looked at me for too long, the quiet sigh he let slip when he thought I wasn't listening. Those moments were dangerous. They made me want things I had no right to want. So I ran. That night, the city lights blurred behind me as I fled. A suitcase in one hand, my chest heaving with a freedom so raw it almost hurt. I didn't have a plan. Just the desperate belief that somewhere beyond Manhattan's towering skyline, there had to be a life that was mine. But freedom has a cruel sense of humor. Because weeks later, staring at the thin pink line on a pregnancy test in a cramped motel bathroom in rural Ohio, I realized I hadn't escaped Daniel at all. I was carrying him with me literally. I wanted to scream, to laugh, to break. Instead, I sat on the cold linoleum floor, hands trembling over my stomach, whispering into the silence. You weren't supposed to happen, but the truth settled heavy in my chest. I wasn't just running for myself anymore. The motel room was small, the kind of place where the wallpaper peeled in corners and the heater clanked like an old man clearing his throat. It smelled faintly of bleach and cigarettes. Yet it was the first place that felt like mine. Here, I wasn't Daniel Carter's fiancé. I wasn't my father's bargaining chip. I was just me. But me came with a secret growing inside my body. A secret that bound me more tightly to Daniel than any contract ever could. Every night, I lay awake, replaying the way his eyes darkened that final evening. We'd fought, God, we'd fought. His voice, low and measured, accusing me of being reckless, ungrateful. My voice, raw and shaking, accusing him of treating me like a deal to be won. Then silence. And then, the kind of desperation that drives two people who shouldn't belong together into each other's arms. One night, one mistake, one life created in the crossfire. I hated myself for craving him even as I hated him for owning a part of me I couldn't take back. It wasn't long before I felt him closing in. Daniel was a man who never lost, and he wasn't about to lose minute to the empty roads of Ohio, not to the silence I tried to drown myself in. The first time I saw his car outside the diner where I worked part-time, my stomach clenched. Sleek, black, Expensivite didn't belong among dusty pickup trucks and faded sedans. He didn't belong here either, but there he was, stepping out with that impossible composure, his tailored coat billowing slightly in the winter air. I froze, coffee pot trembling in my hand. His eyes found mine through the glass window, unflinching, unforgiving, and for the briefest moment broken. I wanted to run again, but my legs wouldn't move, because even from across the street, I could feel the truth pressing down on me. I wasn't just carrying his child. I was carrying the one thing he could never afford to lose, a weakness. And I had no idea if that made me safer with him, or in more danger than ever. Daniel slid into the booth across from me like he owned the place. And maybe he did. Maybe he owned every room he walked into. The diner's neon sign buzzed faintly, the scent of fried eggs and cheap coffee curling in the air, but none of it mattered. The world seemed to shrink to the space between us, the chasm I had carved out with my flight. I gripped the edge of the table, knuckles white, refusing to look at him. If I did, I'd drown in those eyes again, eyes that didn't just see but dissected, dismantled, devoured. You really thought you could vanish? His voice was low, almost casual, but I knew better. Casual for Daniel Carter meant a blade hidden under velvet. I forced a laugh that sounded nothing like me. Guess I didn't do a good enough job. His gaze flicked to the uniform I wore, the diner apron smudged with grease, the tired slump in my shoulders. This is what you ran for? To pour coffee in a nowhere town. It's mine, I said sharply, meeting his stare now, anger sparking where fear wanted to root. For once in my life, it's mine. Something flickered across his face, gone as quickly as it came. Pity? Amusement? No possession. You belong with me. The words landed heavy, suffocating. I wanted to spit them back, deny them, deny him. But beneath the table, my hand drifted unconsciously to my stomach, a traitorous reflex that burned like fire when I realized he caught the movement. His eyes narrowed, calculating, dangerous. Tell me, he said softly, the kind of softness that could slice a man open. What exactly are you hiding from me? The silence stretched, broken only by the clatter of dishes and the hum of old country music from the jukebox. My throat went dry. Lying to Daniel was pointless. Red lies the way surgeons read x-rays, seeing the fracture before it splintered. I swallowed hard. It doesn't matter. His hand moved, steady and deliberate, covering mine across the table. The touch was warm, unwelcome, achingly familiar. My breath hitched, betraying me, and his lips curved in something that wasn't quite a smile. It matters to me. I wanted to jerk away, scream, run. Instead, I whispered the truth I had sworn I'd never let him hear. I'm pregnant. The diner seemed to still. No clattering dishes, no humming jukebox, no clinking forks, just the raw sound of my confession hanging between us like smoke. Daniel didn't flinch. His face stayed a perfect mask, but his fingers tightened over mine, anchoring me, caging me. For one agonizing moment, I thought he might deny it, accuse me, walk away. But then his jaw flexed, and his voice came low and final. You're coming back with me. I shook my head, tears pricking hot behind my eyes. No, you don't get to decide that. This is my life. My child. Our child. The correction was immediate, absolute. And you think I'd let you raise them here? In a diner? Scraping by while reporters dig through the trash for scraps of gossip? No. They'll know my name, my protection. And you'll know your place. Anger flared, stronger than fear. My place? You don't own me, Daniel. I'm not your case to win or your trophy to polish. I'm a person, damn it. And this baby, my voice cracked. This baby isn't your leverage. His eyes darkened, and for the first time, I saw something crack in him too. A shadow of vulnerability, gone as soon as it appeared. This isn't about leverage, he said, softer now, almost pleading though his pride strangled the word. It's about responsibility. Mine. Yours. Ours. I didn't know which scared me more, his control or the thought that maybe, just maybe, beneath all that ice, he meant it. The snow fell harder outside, fat flakes swirling under the streetlight glow. Daniel leaned back in the booth, watching me like a man both cornered and cornering. Finish your shift, he said finally, standing. His coat settled over his shoulders like armor. I'll be outside. It wasn't a request. It never was. And yet, as I watched him walk out of that diner and disappear into the snow, I realized something terrifying. Part of me wanted to follow. That night, I didn't go home to the motel. I went walking instead, the snow crunching under my boots, my breath misting in the cold. My mind replayed every word, every look, every touch that had passed between us. Daniel was a cage, yes, but he was also the only person who could break through mine. I hated that truth. I hated that when he said ours, a part of me wanted to believe it could be real. By the time I reached the motel, his car was already parked outside. Black, sleek, waiting, and so was he. Daniel stood leaning against the hood, snow dusting his shoulders, His gaze locked on me with the intensity of a man who had waited his whole life for something he didn't know how to name. "You can hate me," he said, voice carrying across the still night, "but you don't get to shut me out." I stopped, my heart pounding in my throat. "Why not?" "Because I'm already in." The words burned through the cold, through the fear, through everything I thought I knew about us. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just a battle between him and me. It was a battle for us. The ride back to New York was suffocating. The hum of the tires on the icy highway was the only sound between us, and every mile felt like a nail in the coffin of my freedom. I sat pressed against the window, watching the dark blur of trees give way to scattered lights, my reflection pale and haunted in the glass. Daniel sat beside me, composed as always, hands steady on the wheel, his profile cut sharp against the passing glow of street lamps. It was surreal. Just hours ago, I had been freer, at least convincing myself that I was. Now I was being escorted back to the city I'd escaped, the weight of his presence filling the car like a second atmosphere. "Say something?" I muttered finally, unable to take the silence. "What would you like me to say?" His voice was calm, too calm. I bit my lip. "That I'm not your prisoner." His hands tightened imperceptibly on the wheel. "You're not." "Really?" "Because it feels like it." Daniel's gaze flicked toward me, sharp, then back to the road. "Prisoners don't get choices. You had yours. You ran. Now you're here. With me." "With you?" I echoed bitterly. "That's not a choice. That's inevitability." For the first time, something like frustration cracked his composure. "You think I wanted this?" His voice rose, tight. "You think I planned for my life to be dictated by boardrooms, by contracts, by fathers who see us as pawns?" The admission stunned me into silence. Daniel almost never revealed the cracks in his armor. To hear him say it aloud was like watching marble fracture. "You hate me for being the cage," he said quietly, eyes fixed on the road. "But you don't see that I'm inside it too." The words landed like a punch. I turned back to the window, unable to respond, because part of me understood, and part of me hated that I did. By the time we reached the city, dawn was breaking. Manhattan rose ahead of us like a beast of glass and steel, indifferent to the lives it devoured. The car slid through familiar streets until we pulled up outside Daniel's apartment, a penthouse that screamed control, success, untouchable power. Stepping inside was like stepping into another world. The floors gleamed, the walls were lined with art that probably cost more than the diner I'd been working in, and the view from the floor-to-ceiling windows stretched endlessly over the city. Felt sterile, empty, beautiful and cold, just like him. "This isn't home," I whispered, more to myself than to him. Daniel set his keys on the counter. "It's safer here. For you. For the baby." I flinched at the word, baby. Every time it passed his lips, it made everything too real. He noticed. Of course he did. "You'll get used to it." I shook my head. "You don't get it. I don't want to get used to it." Something shifted in his eyes then, a flicker of pain he couldn't quite bury. "You think I don't know what it's like to want something else?" The rawness in his voice startled me. I almost asked what he meant, but I stopped myself. Daniel didn't give things away without reason. And if I pushed too hard, he'd retreat behind that impenetrable wall again. The days blurred into a rhythm I didn't choose. Daniel left early each morning, immaculate in his suit, returning late at night, shoulders heavy with battles fought in courtrooms and boardrooms alike. He'd check in on me, his gaze lingering longer on my stomach each day, though he never reached out to touch. The apartment became both sanctuary and prison. No reporters, no prying eyes, just silence and space and the weight of his presence even when he wasn't there. But silence has a way of making you confront the things you'd rather bury. I found myself replaying our last night together, the heat, the desperation, the way his lips had softened against mine for just a heartbeat before hardening again. I hated that I remembered. I hated that part of me wanted to remember, and I hated that I started noticing things I shouldn't. The way his voice softened fractionally when he spoke to me at night. The way his eyes lingered on me when he thought I wasn't looking. The way the cold man everyone else saw seemed to thaw, just slightly, in the quiet spaces we shared. It was dangerous, because it made me wonder if there was more to Daniel Carter than the cage. The press caught on faster than I expected. One morning, while sipping tea at the breakfast table, the headline flashed across the screen: Carter Heir's fiancé returns. Trouble in paradise or political strategy? My stomach turned. The article dissected every detail: me disappearance, our supposed reconciliation, and the mysterious circumstances surrounding my return. Photos of me at the diner, grainy but damning, were plastered beside polished shots of Daniel at court. I slammed the remote down, the screen going black. They know. Daniel, standing by the window, didn't even flinch. Of course they do. You're not even surprised, I snapped. I warned you. His tone was clipped, businesslike, but I saw the tension in his shoulders. They'll always know. Every move, every breath. That's the price of being tied to me. I stood, shaking. Then maybe I don't want to be tied to you. His eyes met mine, sharp, unyielding. You already are. It was the truth I couldn't outrun. Not anymore. That night, the fight between us burned hotter than it ever had. You think this is about power? I shouted, pacing the living room. But it's not. It's about control. You can't stand the idea of not owning me. Daniel's jaw clenched, his fists curling at his sides. You think that's what this is? Ownership? You think I drag you back here because I enjoy watching you hate me? Don't you? My voice broke, raw with exhaustion. Because that's all I have left: hate. And you feed on it. For a moment, silence. Then Daniel moved, faster than I expected. His hand gripping my arm, not to hurt, but to anchor. His eyes bored into mine, fierce and desperate. I don't want your hate, he said, his voice cracking in a way that shattered me. I want your trust. But I don't know how to earn it. The words stopped me cold. Because they weren't calculated. They weren't a performance. They were real. And that terrified me more than anything else. The night ended with me curled on the couch, staring at the ceiling, and Daniel in his office, the door closed. The distance between us had never felt greater, and yet something had shifted. I knew then that our story wasn't just about contracts and cages. It was about two people caught in a war between duty and desire, each terrified of losing themselves and each other. And as much as I wanted to deny it, I wasn't sure anymore which scared me more. The thought of staying with him, or the thought of leaving again. The weeks leading up to the election felt like living under a storm that refused to break. Every day was a new headline, every evening a fresh wave of whispers. My name was everywhere. My face splashed across tabloids and primetime debates. I had become less a person and more a symbol upon whose every move was dissected, speculated upon, devoured. Daniel tried to shield me, but I knew the pressure was crushing him too. Behind his sharp suits and measured words, I saw the sleepless nights, the tension in his jaw, the weight he carried like a man born with chains around his wrists. And yet, in the rare quiet moments we managed to steal together, the cracks in his armor widened. Sometimes, in the middle of the night, I would wake to find him sitting at the edge of the bed, head bowed in his hands, the faintest tremor in his shoulders. He never heard me stir, never realized I saw him stripped bare of all that cold perfection. And every time I wanted to reach for him, but I was afraid. Afraid that if I let myself fall, there would be no climbing back out. The breaking point came the night of the charity gala. It was supposed to be a flawless evening, cameras flashing, politicians mingling, champagne flowing like water. Daniel's hand was warm on the small of my back, guiding me through the glittering crowd as if we were the perfect couple everyone wanted us to be. But then the questions started. Reporters swarmed, microphones thrust in my face. Why did you run? Are you pregnant? Was it a scandal or a lover's quarrel? My throat closed. Panic clawed at me, the noise suffocating, the lights blinding. I froze, every muscle locking tight. And then Daniel did something I never expected. He pulled me close. Not the staged, Stiff closeness of a political photo op. Real closeness. His arm wrapped around me, shielding me. His lips brushing my temple as he whispered low, meant only for me. I've got you. Just breathe. It broke me, because for the first time I believed him. Later that night, after the gala ended and the cameras were gone, I found myself standing with him on the rooftop terrace of his penthouse. The city stretched below us, endless and alive, but all I could see was him. I can't do this, I whispered, the words trembling out of me. I can't be the perfect partner they want. I can't live my life as a headline. Daniel turned to me, his expression softer than I'd ever seen it. I don't want perfect. I just want you. Tears burned my eyes. You don't mean that. He stepped closer, his hand hovering near mine, uncertain for once. I do. For so long, I thought control was the only way to survive. But with you, I don't want control. I want something real. My breath hitched. And if I break? His fingers finally touched mine, tentative, trembling. Then I'll break with you. It was the most terrifying, beautiful promise I'd ever heard. The months that followed weren't easy. We fought. We faltered. The press tore at us. My father pressed harder, and Daniel's enemies circled like vultures. But through it all, we kept choosing each other again and again, even when it hurt, even when it scared us. And slowly, impossibly, the walls between us crumbled. I saw Daniel not as the alpha lawyer, the cold strategist, the man everyone feared, but as the boy who once dreamed of freedom before the world caged him. And he saw me not as a pawn, not as leverage, but as someone who made him feel alive again. When our child was finally born, everything changed. I held that tiny, fragile life in my arms, tears streaming down my face, and for the first time I felt something greater than fear. Love, pure and unstoppable. And when Daniel placed his hand over mine, his eyes wet, his lips trembling with words he couldn't speak, I knew we had finally built something no contract could ever bind. On the morning of the election results, we sat together in the nursery, the city roaring outside our windows. Daniel's phone buzzed with calls, messages, numbers flashing across the screen. But he didn't answer. He just sat beside me, our child sleeping in my arms, his hand resting over mine. Whatever happens, he said softly, this is what matters, not the deals, not the votes. This. I looked at him then, really looked, and saw not the cage, not the coldness, but the man who had fought his way through fire to be here, with me. And for the first time, I let myself believe in us. The headlines would come and go. The world would keep talking. But up on that rooftop, in that nursery, in the quiet moments we carved out for ourselves, we had found something stronger than politics, stronger than fear. We had found love. Not perfect, not easy, but real. And that was enough. Thank you for listening. Like and subscribe to get notifications about next videos.